As a mega drought ravages the West, animal rights advocates and the government are at odds over how to control the rising number of wild horses that live and graze on public lands. The Bureau of Land Management captured more than 4,000 wild horses in the first half of 2021. They aim to round up more than 11,000 by the end of the year. Some of the horses will remain in permanent captivity. According to National Geographic, scientists say the situation is, quote, increasingly urgent as worsening droughts and warming temperatures intensify competition among wildlife and livestock for food and water. Figuring out how to manage wild horses humanely and sustainably is an intractable dilemma that grows every year. Natasha Daly is a wildlife reporter for National Geographic. She joins me now with more on her reporting. Hi there, Natasha. You say that managing the wild horses and caring for them in captivity costs taxpayers about $100 million per year. Why does the Bureau of Land Management argue that these horses need to be rounded up to begin with?
Thanks, Lana. So the management of these wild horses, of which the Bureau of Land Management, which falls under the Interior Department, says there's 86,000 of them that are roaming the American West. They deem this number to be fundamentally unsustainable. They say that about 26,000 is the goal. That would be a sustainable number to be roaming the wild. And now we're at 86,000. So what they say is there's just way too many on public lands, and they need to get those numbers down.
Natasha, tell us more about the effects of climate change on these wild animal populations and how sheep and cattle are also competing with these horses for food.
Yeah, so right now the American West is in the throes of a historic drought. 90% of the American West is in drought, and half of that is extreme drought. So, everyone from humans to wildlife and to livestock are facing water shortages. And ultimately, for the animals that live on the lands, the fear is from scientists that if drought persists, and it looks like it will, these animals are going to face increased food shortages as well. So as you said, there are livestock sharing these lands with horses. A lot of advocates actually think that livestock, the number of livestock should be decreased and the horses should be left alone. So that's part of this entire dilemma. But as you have these horses, which are growing exponentially every year, and they have no natural predators, the issue becomes, how do we prevent the populations of these horses from increasing to the point where it becomes even more sustainable or unsustainable than it is now.
Well, how do animal rights advocates believe that these populations should be controlled? And what happens if the wild horse population isn't managed?
Yeah, so there's a large spectrum within the advocate community. On the extreme end, some advocates think the horses should just be completely left alone and shouldn't be interfered with at all. Others, more in the middle, agree that there is a need to control their populations. I mean, there's 86,000 of them, and because there aren't any natural predators, they're growing by 20% every year. So a lot of advocates, sort of like in that middle ground, think the best way to control their populations is through fertility control. And this is a method that the government is already using, but not to the degree that many advocates would like. So fertility control means that, female and male horses are darted with a drug that would prevent them from conceiving. And so in an ideal world, I think a lot of advocates think, okay, this is the best way, the most humane way, and the most sustainable way to control these population numbers. But it's very complicated.
Very interesting. Natasha Daly, thank you.
Thank you for having me.